In most countries, cars disappear after 10 or 15 years as technology moves on. Styles change and old models are quickly forgotten. But in India, one car refused to die. Born from a 1950s British design and already outdated almost from day one, it somehow survived for nearly 70 years. While the world moved into the digital age and cars evolved into sleek, computer-controlled machines, the stubborn machine kept rolling off the assembly line almost unchanged. And somehow, this obsolete car became a national icon. This is the unbelievable story of the Hindustan Ambassador, the car that outlived its own era. To understand how this happened, we have to go back to the 1940s, when India was still under British rule and barely had an automotive industry. Cars were mostly imported, but Indian industrialists saw an opportunity. In 1942, during World War II, the Birla family established Hindustan Motors near Kolkata, anticipating that an independent India would need its own manufacturing industries. Instead of building a car from scratch, they licensed the Morris Oxford Series 3 from Britain, adapting it for Indian production. When the first Ambassadors rolled out in 1958, they were simple, sturdy cars that handled India's rough roads surprisingly well thanks to their robust engineering and high ground clearance. Normally, cars are updated every few years, but India's economic policies in the 1950s and 60s changed everything. Import restrictions and the so-called License Raj made foreign competition almost impossible, leaving Hindustan Motors with little competition except for a Fiat-based rival. For decades, if you wanted a car in India, your realistic options were limited, and there was little incentive for Hindustan Motors to modernize the Ambassador. As a result, the car remained largely unchanged while the rest of the world moved forward. Yet instead of rejecting it, people embraced it. The Ambassador became part of everyday Indian life, appearing in family memories, Bollywood films, news footage, and city streets across the country. The car also became closely linked with authority and government. White ambassadors carried ministers, bureaucrats, diplomats, and police officials, turning the car into a symbol of power and officialdom. Its spacious interior made it perfect for large families, while its mechanical simplicity allowed local mechanics to keep it running almost indefinitely. Across India, especially in cities like Kolkata, fleets of ambassadors served as taxis, becoming an inseparable part of urban identity. If you're enjoying this journey into forgotten automotive history, consider subscribing now, because stories like this are disappearing almost as quickly as the machines themselves. The Ambassador did receive updates over time, including diesel engines, power steering, and air conditioning. But these improvements arrived decades after they became standard elsewhere. When India liberalized its economy in the early 1990s and foreign manufacturers entered the market, consumers suddenly had access to modern, fuel-efficient, comfortable cars. Compared to these newcomers, the Ambassador felt ancient. Sales collapsed, and despite attempts to modernize the model, the aging platform couldn't compete. Production slowed dramatically, and in 2014, after labor disputes and declining demand, production finally stopped, ending one of the longest-running car production stories in history. Even after production ended, the Ambassador refused to vanish completely. Thousands still run today, particularly as taxis in Kolkata, where the yellow Ambassador remains a beloved symbol of the city. Skilled mechanics continue keeping them alive, crafting parts when originals are unavailable, proving how deeply rooted the car became in everyday life. In many ways, the Ambassador outlived its practical usefulness, but survived through emotional connection and nostalgia. And maybe that's why the Ambassador still matters. It reminds us that machines aren't just metal and mechanics. They become part of people's lives, memories, journeys, and family stories frozen in time. Long after production stopped, the Ambassador continued rolling through India's streets, proving that sometimes being loved matters more than being modern. If stories like this fascinate you, the cars that shaped history and the machines the world almost forgot, subscribe and join us for the next story. Because next time we dive into another legend that refused to disappear. I'll see you in the next episode.